morning. I am back from a lovely vacation on the Lake Champlain here in Burlington. I went to this beautiful island canoe camping and I'm feeling refreshed, and I'm sorry that I missed you last week, but I'm so excited to talk to you today about creative paralysis and how we can move beyond that to fearless songwriting. So before we dive in, I want to let you know that next Monday, the 20th of July, we are running again live the 5-day challenge to revolutionize your music practice. So you may have gone through this with me before. You may have done it on your own because you can go through it automatically throughout the year on your own. You may never have heard of it before. Either way, I would love to have you join us live. Even if you have done it before, I'm going to be updating a lot of the content, and basically you receive this training over 5 days through a series of emails. And then we also have a pop-up Facebook group where I go live every day to answer your questions and give you support and feedback. And this is all about really rediscovering joy in your practice, really getting over the overwhelm that you might feel about what to focus on and getting crystal clear, and learning some effective practice habits that can keep you feeling inspired instead of frustrated. And also how you can really maximize your time. So even if you have limited time for practice, how you can really make the most of that and just kind of re-fall in love with making music and practice, get over all of the kind of struggle that you might have with discipline, and just really step into a whole new level of your creative power through this work. I'm also going to be sharing a really special technique called the core heart throat visualization, as well as the soul sound practice, which is all about connecting to your innate wisdom, your greatest creative power, which I'll talk a little bit about today, but has a lot to do with kind of getting over creative paralysis. So if you want to join me in this training, you can head to shesingsoutloud.com/practice and sign up for it, and we will start next Monday. I'd love to have you. We also have our core offering, the She Sings Out Loud From Closet Singer-Songwriter to Powerful Performer program, starting in a couple of weeks. And you can go to shesingsoutloud.com/programs to get on the wait list and to schedule a 30-minute consultation with me to see if this is right for you. Okay, let's dive in. So, I'm going to say something a little bit radical. And I want to say that there is no such thing as writer's block. Just sit with that for a little bit. Totally open to your feedback. You may agree with me, you may not. That's fine, but I'm just going to put it out there. There is no such thing as writer's block. So what most people call writer's block, I like to call creative paralysis. And you have every ability to be able to really work through this and control it. And I don't believe that there's something out there, like some source like writer's block, that's really stopping you. Okay? And I know that sometimes writer's block is talked about being more of an internal experience, but again, I think that when we say writer's block, we sort of feel like somehow we're out of control, like it's not up to us, we've just have this thing that's blocking us. And creative paralysis has to do a little bit more with the fact that you might have some fear and some internal blocks around creating, or you just might not know how to find your way in, but it's really possible right now to work through it, and it's not something that has to stop you for the long term the way we tend to think about writer's block. So creative paralysis, it kind of stems from a couple of things. It comes from the fear of the blank page, or the fear of the kind of open space of not really knowing what is going to happen. It comes from the fear of what is possible for us. So sometimes I think creative paralysis arises because we sort of sense our own potential, and then it scares us and we shut down around it. Okay, fear of what's possible for us, or the other side of that would be fear of not being good enough, fear of what's not possible. Really, the key thing is, I think it comes from our inability to rest in the unknown. That the creative space is really distinct from any other area of life, and it really takes this ability to just come to a place of stillness and to be with this sense of kind of almost like we're pregnant with something that can come out of us, but we don't know what that is. And that can bring up a lot of fear and uncertainty and cause us to shut down, which kind of turns into this creative paralysis. So it's this inability to rest in the unknown and sort of be with that space of what might come. Okay? it also comes from our lack of connection to our true source of creativity. So sometimes we're trying so hard to kind of use the knowledge we have, the musical training we've had, and create something, and we get kind of in our heads about it. We've lost touch with this kind of true sense of our creative spirit and this true connection to that. And so then we just get really heady, and then we feel like we don't know what we're doing and we shut down. Okay, so it kind of goes back to this inability to sort of rest with the unknown and let things really arise and come through us. So it also comes from not knowing how to listen to this voice within, or allowing it to come. So similar to what I said before, this lack of connection to our source of creativity, but more than just a lack of connection, we don't actually know how to really listen to the creative potential within us. Okay? And then, of course, it's about doubting our right to do this, or that we have something to say. So that can be another big thing. So we're often really stopped by, inside of this kind of last one, this self-doubt, these thoughts about not being good enough. And we could probably have a whole discussion about what good really means. It's so subjective, but we kind of have this constant thing of like when we go to create, is this good enough? I think of this line of lyrics, but I don't know if it's really good enough. And we immediately start to judge what we're creating before it's really had a chance to just be there, be out there in the open space. Or this thought of like, will people like this? Is it going to be accepted? And all of a sudden, those thoughts disconnect us from our true source of creativity, and we're no longer listening to the potential force. We're no longer resting in the unknown. We're no longer open to seeing what comes. We're all in our head about what we think of something that hasn't even come to be yet, which is kind of a little crazy if you think about it. Let's just kind of sit with that one. You start to judge something that doesn't yet exist. Now, can you imagine doing that with an unborn child? Right? Can you imagine being pregnant with this beautiful child inside of you, and immediately you start to kind of judge, oh, they got terrible grades in school and they're throwing tantrums, and you know, I don't, you know, they're such a they left their room a mess, or like all of these things that maybe as a parent, I'm not a parent, so I can't speak to that, but I do work with a lot of children, and I know a lot of parents, a lot of my friends are parents, but there's this, you know, there's all these things that children, there's these aspects of children that are difficult, or that we could maybe kind of judge. But can you imagine doing that when the child hasn't come into the world yet, when it's unborn? That's kind of like what we're doing. We have this creative force that's moving through us. We're pregnant with the possibility of this song within us, this thing we want to birth into the world, and we start to judge it before it's even out there. Now, there is a place for the inner critic, for sure, but the creative paralysis arises when we kind of start to judge it before it's had a chance to be. Or the creative paralysis arises when the inner critic is not in balance or in alignment with that kind of true flow of creativity. Okay, so you know, even if we're able to sort of release some of these thoughts of our kind of judgment, our self-doubt, the inner chatter of if something's good enough, even if we're able to release that in the moment, our creative work can become really impacted by those thoughts. And the way that this kind of works is that instead of creating with this curiosity and this freedom and this joy and this ability to rest in the unknown and allow something to kind of rise and be revealed to us, which is really what creativity is about, is we just kind of let ourselves be, and the thing that wants to come through is revealed if we give it enough space. It really is, and I'll get to that a little bit more in a minute. So instead of working from that place, we sort of start comparing ourselves, we start asking for good enough, and we actually cut off the spontaneous flow of creative ideas. We shut it down. We're doing that with our own judgment, or with this inner critic that's a little bit out of control, and that's where we really get stuck. Okay? So when we do this, basically what we've done is we've interrupted this natural flow of our creativity, and what that does energetically is basically put a message out there into the universe. I'm not really worthy of this brilliant creative work that is coming through me, of all these creative ideas that you, whatever your connection is with that which is greater than you, that you nature, that you the universe, that you the cosmos, that you God, that you the divine have sent me. I'm not really worthy of those. And thus, they stop coming. Okay, let me just emphasize that because it's really important. So we start to kind of shut ourselves down by stopping the spontaneous flow with our own judgment, by not being able to just rest in the unknown of the creative force that's moving in us and allow it to move. We kind of shut that down, and then the message we are putting out there is, I don't want this. I don't want this. Stop sending me these ideas. And then maybe the next day we wake up and we're like, oh, I want to create. Let me find all these creative ideas. And there are no ideas and there is no inspiration because we've kind of said no to it. Okay, so this is something really to look at for yourself of where do you do this? Where do you do this? So then we might feel really empty. We've cut ourselves off from the creative source and we might feel empty. We might feel sad. We might feel stuck. And this is creative paralysis. So what do we do about this? What do we do about it? So first of all, we have to be able to show up naked, raw, and vulnerable. We have to be able to show up inside of the unknown. We have to be willing to rest in the possibility and the potential without knowing how it's going to turn out. And that takes us being really vulnerable. And this is why it's really important to have a safe space that you create in, whether that is a room where you're not around other people, or if you are creating with other people, it's people that you really feel safe enough to be that vulnerable with. Because it really takes that. If we don't have the space to be that open, then it's really hard for the creative ideas to come. It takes a lot of fearlessness, a tremendous amount of courage and fearlessness. Okay? So one thing to sort of ask yourself when you're having that moment of feeling like there's no ideas that are coming and you just feel really empty. So the first thing to ask yourself, right, would be, can I show up really raw, open, and vulnerable? And if you're able to work with showing up in that way, perhaps the creative ideas and the inspiration comes. But one thing to consider is you might actually be in something that is kind of like a fallow period. And I'm totally spacing on her name. Oh, Kate Northrup, I think is how you pronounce it. She wrote this book called Do Less, and she talks about the fallow period in there. So that's kind of her word for it, which I love and I'm totally stealing. So I want to credit her. So it could be the fallow period. It's also been called by Natalie Goldberg, who's an amazing writing teacher. She calls it the kind of need to fill up your well. So sometimes this will occur after we've completed a creative project, or we've been doing a lot of creative work, and we've been maybe writing a lot of songs, or maybe there's like this epic mega song we've been working on and we finish it and we just kind of feel like whew, wind blown out of sails, like I'm empty. And that is actually okay, and it's something that we don't honor in our culture. So you might feel that emptiness, and it's actually not really creative paralysis. It's just kind of you need to be in this sort of fallow period. The earth has a fallow period in the winter. If we think about our menstrual cycle, we have different times of, there's this kind of, there's the fullness of the full moon. Then there's our actual menstrual flow is kind of this like just time of rest and rejuvenation. Okay, in this sort of fallow period. So what you can do, what Natalie Goldberg suggests, is you use that time to actually fill your well up. You just are in really a state of receiving and just going out and maybe into nature, taking lots of walks, going to places that inspire you, having conversations. You don't have to actually practice and create in that moment. You're just kind of taking in life a little bit, taking in the world, being open to what comes. So you can kind of fill that space up again, because you maybe have really depleted all of the current creative ideas with this kind of epic work that you just birthed into the world. So I know I experienced this after releasing a CD. Many musicians experience this after like a big tour or things like that, where you just kind of need to rest. So that's one thing to kind of consider. But if you're, if you're in that period, I will say you want to make sure that you're not kind of striving and pushing and struggling. You just really allow yourself to be in that restful place. But if you're not really in this fallow period, maybe it's been Maybe you are, maybe you're not, but maybe you're just kind of have done this thing with creative paralysis where you've sort of shut yourself down. This still sort of applies. We still need this space where we just kind of allow ourselves to be fully open and to receive rather than always trying to do. We really have to honor the being over the doing, the receiving over the action, and just take some space to just be rather than always striving and pushing, because that kind of aggression is never ever going to kind of really create. And if we are able to create from that aggression, it's never going to be fully fulfilling. Let's just say that. So we do need this time always to just rest and to be. And then once we've kind of had that space, we've sort of rested and we've allowed ourselves to be in this kind of empty space, then we can start to harness our courage. We can harness our ability to sort of develop and to move forward into a space of action. Creativity is this magical balance of inaction and action, of being and of doing. So you kind of got to allow yourself to be in that play, be resting, be receptive, then start to move towards the flow. And with that, there takes some kind of effort and some energy. We don't want it to be aggressive, but it does take some sort of kind of stamina to kind of show up and sort of take some willpower to move through and go into our creativity. We can't just be in that fallow period, or we can't just be in that space of rest all the time. And I had a conversation recently with a current student of mine who's in the Powerful Performer Collective, which is our kind of graduate course for after you've completed the 90-day from closet singer-songwriter to powerful performer program. And she was talking about sort of how there's, the moments when songwriting comes easy and just wanting to be in that place of ease. Like, oh, the ideas come and I have this half-written song and that half-written song and a journal filled with all of these creative ideas of, maybe one or two lines of a song or different little recordings of certain melodies. And that's great. So you want to celebrate those moments of ease when it comes, but there also is a next step. You kind of have to get yourself to sort of move into the unknown. This goes back to what I said, this kind of struggle we have to really rest and appreciate being in the space of the unknown. And when you're able to do that, to kind of balance the being, but then take the action and move into the space of unknown with fearlessness and with courage, that's where you really start to kind of develop this muscle for creating. And again, it's not forcing, it's not aggressive. It's just really, really coming to it with some courage and some faith. So that is the next thing I want to talk about is faith. It takes some kind of faith that the inspiration will come and the voice of our creative fire, our inner creative wisdom will come if we are doing that work, if we continuously show up, if we show up when we're not inspired even, and we just kind of receive and we're open, and then we just strive to kind of do something. Write a bad song. I had a teacher, Carrie Grundy, always says that. Write a bad song. Just kind of go for it and see what happens. And in that space, you're sort of inviting your creative fire to come back alive. If you do nothing, again, you're sort of giving this message to your creative fire, to the universe, to your soul sound. I don't know, this is important, maybe it's not important, I don't really care, I don't have anything to offer, or, I'm completely shutting it down. So you have to kind of open up the space with the being and then with the action of just kind of doing and striving and having some faith that the voice and the inspiration will come. And then the other thing that you really need to work with is knowing how to open to your most intelligent, exceptional, wise, creative source within you of your creativity, knowing how to open to her. And that can take a lot. It can be really hard to do that. You might have written dozens of songs, but it still might be difficult to really open to the depth of this wise, creative force within you. This is what I call our soul sound. So I will be teaching you a practice to be able to do that, to really be able to open up to the source in the free 5-day training that starts next Monday. So definitely head over to shesingsoutloud.com/practice to get into that training, and I'll be teaching you a way to do that. But maybe you also have your own ways that you can work with. And in kind of doing this work to open to her, we develop our trust, we develop our faith, we develop our courage, and we'll find that our creative paralysis actually disappears. And we never have to be there again. It's all a work of faith and of courage and of opening. It's also about developing our ability to be receptive, to surrender, and to allow. Okay? And it has to do with really trusting our gut, which is connected to trusting this creative force within us. So that kind of concludes what I wanted to say today. But my invitation to you is to really think about how you're showing up in your practice, how you're able to open to resting in the unknown, and how you're able to really receive this creative, wise force within you, your soul sound, and be able to create from that place. So again, that's my invitation, is for you to just do your own investigation. But if you want to be part of the training where I will be supporting you and teaching you how to do this, go to shesingsoutloud.com/practice. Even if you've been through it before, you always will get something new out of it. I'm changing things, and there'll be live Facebook trainings on it, so you can ask any questions. Maybe if you've gone through it before, but you have new questions that have emerged, please join me. I'd love to have you. And then if you'd like to jump on a 30-minute free consultation with me to talk about the From Closet Singer-Songwriter to Powerful Performer program, you can head over to shesingsoutloud.com/programs. And there's a button there to get on the wait list, as well as to book a call with me. Much love to you. I hope this has been helpful. Please comment below if you have some tools and techniques for working with creative paralysis and harnessing your kind of fearless way to move into your songwriting. Have a wonderful day.